Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Intentional Man Podcast. I'm your host, Rick Luttrell. Hey, Rusty. It's good to be back with you again today and on a topic that I think a lot of us will find useful and interesting. You know, we talk about a lot of things where guys can be more intentional with life to make a difference and really live again intentionally with purpose. And today's topic, talking about being organized, I think is one that will help a lot of us to make better use of our time and be more productive. And we're going to be talking about some benefits of being organized, some obstacles to being organized, and then some ways, if you aren't an organized fellow, that you can take some steps to become more so. So those are the things we'll be talking about. And I know you are an organized gentleman, so I know you'll have lots of good feedback on this one.
Yeah, just like yourself, this is a kind of an easy topic to talk about, isn't it? Because we both like things in their place. We don't like clutter. We don't like squalor and disarray. So it's easy to talk about. But I know there's a lot of people that struggle with it, or maybe we are better in one area than another, and kind of going, all right, well, why isn't it we can be so organized in a certain area but not in another? So I think a lot of us do that, that we go, okay, well, I can be this way at work, but when I get to home, I can't. Or well,
Yeah.
I can be that way with my tool drawer, but forget my clothes. They're all over the place. So it's
Yeah.
it's kind of an interesting dichotomy that we have at times.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think we'll actually maybe even touch on that individual part of the topic as we're talking through how in some areas we may be extremely organized and others may just look like chaos. But one distinction I came across as I was putting together some notes is the difference between being unorganized and disorganized. And you probably know, but I thought for the listeners or those watching, it might be interesting to share with them the differences. Do you happen to know the difference between each?
Yes, one starts with un and the other one starts with dis, of course. So yes.
Well, exactly,
How
and that's all it
how
is,
else
folks.
may I enlighten you? Yes, that's it. All
Yeah.
right. We'll
All
see you
right.
next week.
This is gonna be a short podcast.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, so unorganized is basically someone who is perpetually not organized. That's their way of doing life. You look at maybe their home, their job, everything. They're just an unorganized person. Disorganized gives the impression that at one time it was organized. Under normal circumstances it's organized, but right now in the moment it's disorganized. I just think it's an interesting difference there, because there's a lot of times where we may find ourselves disorganized. Like, as an example, right now we're remodeling our sunroom, and if you look at our back porch and around the sunroom, it doesn't look organized. It is disorganized, but that's not its normal state. It's typically organized, and everything's in its place. Like you and I were talking about, I don't like to walk around the house and see things just chaotic and out of place. So it's not a normal way of being. But if you go into someone, maybe a hoarder as an example. Now, the interesting
Mhm.
thing about hoarders is they can actually be very organized. I don't know if you remember this. I used to teach a class about hoarding, and for a hoarder, it's not that they are unorganized or disorganized. A lot of them actually know exactly where things are, at least categorically. In this room of stuff, this is where I have my memorabilia or something. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
just interesting that they view it that way. Of course, there are some hoarders that just they don't. There is no method to the madness. It's just chaos in the house. You walk in, and I've seen
Mhm.
some of the shows, where you walk in and basically you're just wading through stuff, choosing your steps wisely just to make it from the front door, maybe to the kitchen or something. But those people, they live in a state of perpetual uh, unorganization. They are just never organized. So just a little bit of a difference there as we're going through. And we may use the terms interchangeably as we go. So don't, again, for those listening or watching, don't hold us to it. But
Mhm.
but again, I came across that just as I was doing some exploring, and I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, definitely a difference between the two. You're right. I have been in some hoarder houses for
Hmm.
at different times, and there is definitely a difference. There are those that are unorganized that have just got stuff all over, and it looks like somebody just backed up a dump truck and dumped a bunch of random junk all over the place. And yet I remember very distinctly one guy that you would absolutely say he is a hoarder because he literally had like paths going through. And this was a fairly small house, if you walked into a room, you could not see the other wall. Like you couldn't see any walls except if you kind of maybe turned around and looked a couple of steps behind you, because he had paths and he had stuff stacked floor to ceiling all the way through. And I remember going into the back trying to look at this one area for him, and he had electronic equipment. So everything was very organized. There was, you would never say that he is unorganized. Everything definitely had its place, but you would also absolutely say he is a hoarder because he had just, I mean, monumental stuff, stacks of stuff all over the place, for it. So yeah, there's definitely, I think, as I was saying, there's times where we have maybe certain areas. You're right. There's like we're painting my son's room, kind of redoing it right now, and so we've got everything moved out except the bed and the dresser. And kind of the same thing, you would walk into the hall and go, "Whoa, what you got going on here?" But yet, there's a method to it. It's not like it's going to stay there permanently. Or I think even times, let's say that we come home from the beach or maybe all from camping, you unenlightened people, and maybe, it's later or you're just exhausted and you just kind of drop stuff. It's like, all right, let's just get in, let's get some dinner, let's go to
Right.
bed, whatever. And at that moment, that pile of stuff is definitely disorganized, but you don't leave it there. Again, after, maybe the next morning you walk by and go, man, that kind of bothers me. And so, 8:30, you're there cleaning up or kind of reorganizing stuff. So I think that's more just a moment in time when you have
Right.
stuff
Temporary
disorganized.
disorganization.
Yeah, that's kind of a temporary stuff, kind of like that flower pot I see over your shoulder is slightly off center. I'm sure, once we're done, you're going to go correct that because that's just a slight, disorganization. Yet if someone that is completely organized, and again, we know some people that maybe we see often that that they live in a perpetual state of unorganization. There's nothing about their life that is organized. If you went into their house, if you looked at their vehicle, if anything else, they're just unorganized. And for some people, I guess they get by, but I think we'll see that a little organization can go a long way and can actually be quite helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, if you look at that flower pot, the center of the flower pot is totally in line with the top picture left frame. So
I see, I saw that. And so I wasn't sure if it was the flower or the
I had the
table
yeah,
that
I had
needed
the
to.
measuring tape out for placement of that pot. No.
Yeah, well, I
Uh
I didn't know if maybe the tape that you usually put down, to outline to say exactly. I didn't know if maybe somebody was messing with you and had moved the tape over, so you would think, oh, this
yeah.
is perfectly in line, but no, no.
Yeah. Well, thanks for pointing out my error. I'll have to make sure I correct that after the show's over.
That's what good friends are for, right?
That's exactly
That's
right, man. Holding us accountable. Unfortunately
that's
for
right.
you, there's not a lot in the background.
Oh no, that's why I keep it that way. Yeah, there's the
Yeah,
lovely swatch
there
of
is
of
some
stuff,
clutter
but
on
yes.
your. Yeah, I don't know what that is, but something on the wall there. Uh,
That is actually my lovely wife's doing, and that's something that's hers. That actually, again, there for her, there's actually order in that chaos. Apparently design, which is why I'm not a designer. Apparently, you can put stuff together just kind of randomly, see how it goes, and if it flows and it is okay, and it works for them. That's for me. It's like I like right angles. I like things to fit nice and neat.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
why, yeah, I can't really do that.
No, I'm with you. So anyway, let's look at some of the benefits of organization. Why is it important? What can we gain from being organized? And then we're going to take a look at again some of the obstacles and how we can get better. But when you think of being organized, you know, like I said in the beginning, we talk a lot on this show about being intentional. That's the purpose of what we do. We want to encourage men to be intentional with their life and in a multitude of areas. Everything from being a good husband to doing their career to the best of their ability, everything, living life intentionally, taking every piece of what we're responsible for and what we do seriously. Not that we can't have fun, but doing things intentionally, right? Making the most of our day. And I believe that being organized is a big piece of that. when we're organized, we're actually taking control of the day and saying, this is the structure of the day. This is how much time I have. This is what I need to get done. And not just letting the day happen to us. That's an easy thing to do, isn't it? We've talked about this on some podcasts in the past
Mhm.
where it's really easy to get up and just begin the day and just let it happen. We're basically reactionary the entire day. It's how did the traffic affect us? How does our workplace affect us? How does, you know, what time we ate lunch affect us? All of these things, our kids, our wife, their schools, whatever. Uh, it all happens to us rather than us proactively addressing the day. And yes, those things are still going to happen. You're still going to have to deal with traffic and all of those things. But if we approach the day proactively, we're not reacting to everything potentially in a negative way. We're approaching it with a plan, right? And we can even plan, hey, I know traffic is going to be heavy. I'm going to pop on this podcast. I'm going to put on this certain music. I'm going to, even, have the Bible playing as I'm driving, just whatever it is. But we know these things are going to happen. So we're being proactive in addressing the day that way. So what are some of the benefits of being organized? What's one or two that you would point out?
Yeah, well, I would say you're spot on, of course, because being intentional, being organized, being disciplined, while they're not necessarily synonyms, I think they're all very closely linked. And you're right. It's very easy for things to get away with us. But I think if we have certain structure that we kind of follow in different areas, then it makes it easier for us as we go through it to not just kind of get caught in a rut or to not just go, oh, wow, where did the day go? Especially when we've got important things that need to be done or need to be taken care of, that it's important to structure things so that we can get all of those things done. And probably the most important thing, and I even brought this to show you, with being organized, is so you will learn how to load the dishwasher. My lovely wife actually, gave this a couple of Christmases ago, that the little magnet that we have now that says,
Yeah.
"How do people who are not married ever find out that they are not loading the dishwasher correctly?" And it's something because it even extends to the dishwasher, to
Oh,
where you have
yes.
to have an organization, you have to have a plan and a strategy, or it's just chaos, and we cannot have chaos. But I think that's part of it. And again, too, being organized is not the antithesis of being anti-spontaneity. That's not meaning you can never be spontaneous, that you can never go, hey,
Right.
let's just go do this. That's not it at all. I think if you are organized in your areas, it actually gives you freedom to be more spontaneous in other areas, or when it calls for it, when it's necessary to go, okay, I got this, and this done. Hey, let's go do this. Let's have some fun. Let's do this. But if you go, hey, let's go have some fun, and go, oh man, I was actually supposed to send that email. I just missed a sale. That's kind of a problem, to where you kind of got your stuff handled, so to speak, to where now you can go and actually enjoy the day. You can leave room for those other spontaneous acts, because I think if you don't, you're missing out. Something's going to be forgotten. Something's going to fall through the cracks. So I think if you want to be more spontaneous, kind of like you hear exercise people talk about, if you want to eat more, well, lift weights more, build more muscle. Therefore, you can eat more because you're going to burn more. I think it's a little bit of a correlation to where if you want to be more spontaneous, have more freedom, more free time, be more organized. It seems a little opposite, but it's really not. At least I don't think.
No, yeah, it does seem paradoxical because you're saying, well, in order to be spontaneous, I have to plan. And, it
Right.
doesn't make sense, but it's true. And that was actually one of the things I had written down was it helps us to accomplish more. When
Mhm.
we know what we need to get done and we make a plan for it, we've got some structure. We're able to get those things done in the time frame that we've allotted, and then yeah, it frees up more time for us to be able to be spontaneous to say, hey, I've got a couple extra hours. Let's go to the not the beach. I mean, nobody wants to do that, but let's go hiking.
Yeah.
Let's
Oh,
go do something
golly.
fun, not miserable. Be miserable on the beach and the heat and the sand and salt water. But
Versus gnats and no breaks and just walking. Like,
yeah, but
yeah,
we all have our preferences, of course, but it's
that's right.
but it is true what you said. I like that. It allows us to be more spontaneous by having some structure built into our life. Because what happens when we don't have structure is exactly what you said. We end up with, even during that hike, oh shoot, I was supposed to do this, or I was supposed to call this person, or I forgot I was supposed to meet so and so for coffee, or whatever it is. Oh
Mhm.
man. And then you're having to go and try to figure out how you can do both or reschedule, and it's chaos, and it's really difficult to live that way. Of course, some people do. That's their life. They're
Mhm.
continually trying to reschedule and shift things around because they forgot it, packing their schedule too full. And I think, isn't that another area where even we as men in general can fail, is we try to pack too much into the day. It's out of a good place. We want to take care of as much as we can. We may have a lot of responsibilities at work, and then we also have the responsibilities at home, and then someone comes to us and says, hey, can you help me with this? And we want to be able to help them, so we end up packing so much in that we don't do any of it well. We're just running from one thing to the other, leaving things halfway done, halfway complete, just again, and then you end up with loose ends everywhere. And what's that do? Causes us stress, right? And that
Right.
was another thing that was pointed out, is by being organized, it actually can reduce stress in our life because we're not living chaotically. We're not overwhelmed. We're planning, and we're saying, okay, this is what I can fit in, this is what I can handle and do well, these are my priorities, right? We got to prioritize as we're doing this. And then again, being able to approach the day, the week, even the year with some type of consistency and structure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that if we want more freedom, we want more space for creativity, we want to be able to do more, we have to be able to lay it out and have realistic goals and time frames and say, okay, what can I get done? Kind of when you're doing your remodel there, and we're redoing our son's room, what is a realistic time frame? How quickly can we do this? Are we going to really get this done in a day and then be backed up and then get, frustrated and stressed out because we didn't get accomplished? Or is it going to take 2, 3, 4 days? What can we realistically accomplish? If you lay that out in advance, you avoid some of those pitfalls and some of those headaches that you could possibly run into later.
Yeah, exactly. That's one thing, uh, in the past I've been kind of guilty of, is starting a project and wanting to
Yeah,
get it
me too.
done, right? Wanting to get it finished, and not really allowing the real amount of time that I should in order to do it well, and not have to rush, not have to break my neck trying to get it done. So with the sunroom as an example, I've just kind of paced myself. I was like, okay, I'm going to work on this, maybe a couple hours a day, or 3 hours a day after work, come home, you eat some dinner, work on it for a little while, and whatever gets done in that 2 or 3 hours, that's what gets done for the day. And then the next day, hey, it's not going anywhere. It's not like it's not our kitchen where we're not able to cook or eat, so it's a significant impact on the house. It's our sunroom, and it can if it takes a couple weeks to get done, that's okay. And that's actually helping me. It's nice not to have the pressure of, okay, I need to get this thing done in 3 days, because technically, yeah, I could, but it would be just be overwhelming.
Yeah, it's funny because you contradict that with my son's room that we're redoing now. We can't take too long. That would be
Right,
great to be
yeah.
at a nice leisurely pace, but like he's looking around going, all right, so where are my clothes and where am I sleeping? And I mean actually last night he slept with his brother. They had like a sleepover in the playroom, and so that was
Yeah.
fine for a night. But that's we've got to be going, okay, what are we going to do? When are we going to do it? How quickly? What is our plan to where we can get through it? We don't really have the luxury of time, but knowing that as well up front, planning out, that kind of can reduce our stress as well. So, and
Hmm.
speaking of which, we need to speed this along because I gotta go get some stuff finished. But
You still have paint on the paintbrush right now, right? It's
that's right. Yeah, and probably on my elbow too. But yeah, but but no, but really that is, something that it's if you've got time, it's good to know that in advance so that you don't stress yourself out. Like you're going, oh man, I got to get this done in a week. If you had waited, let's say you were having company come over in a week's time and you had just started, now you're going to feel it. And in hindsight, you're going, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have started that. Maybe I should have started it either a month ago, or I should should wait until they have left and I'm not under that time crunch. I'm not under the pressure, that stress that maybe they won't care and maybe no one else in the house does, but I will. Well, if I know myself, I know I'm going to not be happy with it, then plan it out a little better, or, be organized enough to go, this is not going to happen. This is not going to get done in a week. Same thing, with us, if we had decided to do this back during the end of school or once when school starts, it's going to be kind of a stressful time anyway. That would not have been the wisest decision for us to do that, even if it only takes a couple of days. Not smart. So going, okay, when's the time to do it? Let's plan for it. Let's have our materials. Let's get ready. It makes life a lot easier, a lot less stressful. And as we know, that's one of the key components of having a long, healthy life is trying to de-stress. So if you can use it to do so, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, there's some people listening right now saying, I work best under pressure. And
Yeah.
there are different personalities. Again, if that's how you are, then okay. But that doesn't mean we need to be disorganized and stressed out. I'll tell you this, there are some things I actually do better under pressure. Like if I know, as I'll give you an example, my parents are going to come down from Virginia to visit sometime, probably this summer. We've been wanting to remodel our bathroom for probably a year and a half or so. It's been a long time, maybe a couple of years. And knowing they're coming down is going to put some pressure on me to say, okay, let's just go ahead and do it. I'd like it to be done when they get here. That way it's nice, it's fresh, it's whatever. And so so in that regard, it's kind of giving me some motivation. Not that we would never do it. It was like, okay, when are we going to start? When's a good time? Now it's like, okay, well, let's do it. We have a reason to go ahead and do it now. But it's the people who live every day, again, reactionary to what's happening around them. It's, oh, this was due 3 days ago. I got to hurry and get this done. I got to hurry and get this turned in, or this project finished, or this bill paid, or the car needs gas. I should have filled it up 3 days ago. Now I'm on fumes. That type of lifestyle, it will stress you out. I mean, yeah, like you said, it's not good for your health. Another benefit that was pointed out as I was reading through is living an organized life it improves your health in more than one way. Number one, it helps you get better sleep. And we know, and we've listened to podcasts, and we've talked about this, how important a good night's sleep is, not just for the next day, but literally for your lifetime of health. It will literally, or can literally, impact how long you will live, because our body does so much healing and recuperation as we sleep. And if we're not sleeping well, if we're only sleeping 2, 3, 4 hours a night, and we're stressed out as we go to bed, we're laying there for 2 hours before we fall asleep, that's not just affecting your next day. It's not just I'm cranky because I couldn't sleep. No, it's impacting our health. And then the other thing that it does for us, health related, is as we structure our day, we're able to build in workouts and cardio, and the eating properly. One of the worst things we can do is just eat sporadically, hitting the drive-throughs, grabbing the pizza on the way home, whatever it is, just grabbing easy things because we haven't built into our schedule times that we eat. What are we going to eat? If we're not going to be at home for like lunch, as an example, are you preparing that beforehand so that you've got something good to eat, or at least able to go somewhere that's good to eat? One of the things that Carice does for me nearly every weekend, she started doing this for me, is cooking a big bag of chicken breasts, because that's what I have almost every lunch now. Is I'll eat a chicken breast or chicken breast and a half for lunch. So, I mean, in order to do that, I can't cook them all well, I could. This wouldn't make sense to get up even earlier and try to cook.
Right.
But to do that on a Sunday where it's prepared, or if we do it a couple times a week, to do it in the evening, this again, it's structure, it's preparing, it's thinking ahead, saying, okay, what do we want to eat? How are we going to eat? And planning for that, it improves our health. We're able to, like I said, work out. It makes us stronger. We're able to eat well. We're able to go through our day and not be stressed, which again, overall, this improves our health and wellness holistically.
Right. I think there's a couple of things in there to kind of unpack. I mean, one, for sleep, you're absolutely right. And even having a certain time going, okay, I'm going to bed in this time frame. I know that
Uh-huh.
that my wife and I back, especially more so during the spring, we went, okay, when do we really need to start getting our rest? And so we would, at the clock hit that time, within 30 minutes or so, that's when we were going up, starting to read, kind of winding down, being very intentional and organized about it. As we've hit summer, there's been some times, especially in the last few weeks, where we're going, "Woo, it's kind of late," and we weren't being as intentional. Just kind of our boys were staying up a little bit later too for it, and I can feel it. I notice a difference, and it's not necessarily that anything that we were doing on purpose. It's just one of those kind of life happen type things. But
Hmm.
yet, I know it's like, yeah. Even so, even if they're staying up a little bit later, we still need to make sure that we're getting our sleep because I can feel it in the morning. I can tell the difference. So we need to be more intentional about that. We need to be more organized. Same thing with, as you mentioned, like diet and exercise. That's one of the just the easy low-lying fruit that I think any dietitian, anyone who has any kind of nutrition sense will tell you that a lot of times they will say, meal plan, do exactly like you do on Sunday to where you make batches. You've got easy things to grab, whether it is snacks, whether it is lunches, plan out your different meals. And
Hmm.
I know, again, we have started doing that back when we were first married, didn't have to worry about kids. We would do what I think a lot of people do, kind of that evening, afternoon going, what's for dinner? Yeah, and just kind of trying to decide whether we had to then run to the grocery store or not, whether we said, okay, let's just, we've got this and we've got that, and kind of putting it together to where you can get by. You can do that. I think, especially as Americans, a lot of people do that and end up making some pretty poor food choices, especially like you mentioned with lunch. If you don't have something that you brought with you, are you just going through a drive-through, or are you getting something that's like, oh, well, I'm even going to be healthier. I'm going to grab the sandwich and chips. Like, well, no, not really, by what you're grabbing. Or are you actually planning it out? And we started something several years ago to where we will actually meal plan Friday or Saturday, plan out what we're going to have for the next week, and then we can makes it a lot easier when we go to the grocery store. We usually go once, and so we go over the weekend, and then we've got all of our stuff, and it makes it really easy. We don't have to think about it. We don't have to stress about it on Wednesday afternoon. What are we going to have for dinner tonight? Well, we know because we wrote it down. We planned it out. Does this work for you? Does this sound good? Kind of going to where we've got both. We're happy because of our variety, and also because we know exactly what we're going to do. We know what we're going to plan. Do you have a later day? Do I have a later day? So who's going to prepare the meal that day? It makes it so much easier and just takes away
Yeah.
an area of stress that can be extremely stressful. And it's funny going back to people working under pressure. I think about a couple of different examples of people that really thrive under pressure. One, in a previous career, I went through culinary school and was kind of in the hospitality industry. Some of the most creative people that work under the most stress, I would say, are chefs, especially ones at higher end restaurants, that they are constantly living by their last meal, by their last review, how many stars, all that kind of stuff. And yet, there's obviously a saying, one of the first things that you will learn probably day one when you are in culinary school in a kitchen is mise en place, everything in its place, to where you got people that are extremely stressed, and a lot of them are very unorganized in other parts of their life. Yet when it comes to the kitchen, they're not, because they're not just going, hey, what do I have? What do I have? No, you have your ingredients, you have everything planned out, you have everything prepped, you have your mise en place. And now I'm going to make this dish, to where they are under obviously a lot of pressure. Somebody doesn't like it. Are they going to send it back? Are they not going to pay? There's a lot of stress that goes into that lifestyle. And yet, they handle it, they thrive on it by being prepared. I also think of, I love sports, of like general managers that have to plan out a professional team, especially like football, that where you've got the free agency and then you've got the NFL draft. When you're on the clock, you literally have got, depending on the round, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 7 minutes to make a draft pick that could potentially change your franchise. These players, if you don't pick the right ones, they're going to get you fired. If you don't sign the right guys in free agency, you will be fired. It is a very short lifespan for someone like that. Well, how do they handle that pressure? By being extremely organized. And you will even hear people or athletes in games, well, how were you able to be so calm, when it was the fourth quarter and you're down and you need to drive for a touchdown? And they will almost always fall back, say, well, I was prepared. It was because of my preparation, because they were very organized and intentional. They were prepared. They had everything laid out for them, to where when it was a stressful time, they were calm. And I think that's key to everything. And we were just talking about our day to day-to-day life to where we've got these little stressors and pressures that maybe we don't even think, it's not a big deal. I got to pick what's for dinner tonight. Well, if you're in Europe and walking around and going to the grocery every day because you're walking there, you're walking back, well, that's kind of a fun experience. But that's not the experience for most Americans, especially not most of us who have to get in the car and drive somewhere, who have to worry about picking up or taking the kids to or from school, practice, whatever else. That is a stressor, whether we realize it or not. And so to making our life easier is just one of the key things to being able to have an enjoyable life, is to taking away that stressor by being organized and going, here's what I'm doing, and here's what day, and here's what time, here's what you're doing as well. I think it helps us when we are setting expectations for others as well, to go, okay, I'm handling this, you're handling that, right? And being in agreement and upfront with it, again, reduces stress and reduces our anxiety about if someone is going to handle their part.
Right, right. So mise en place.
Yes.
Does that apply to other areas aside from the kitchen? Is that just a general term? Like everything in its place is what you said, but it doesn't just apply
Yeah.
to the kitchen, correct?
Right. It's something that I guess I don't know if it was Escoffier or who adopted it back in the time, but yeah, I mean, it's a general saying. Matter of fact, my wife and I will use it all the time. We'll talk or kind of joke with with our boys, even if they're going to do an art project or they just want to do something different, and we'll go, all right, get your mise en place, get everything in its place, get the things that you need. You're going to draw. Okay. You're just using, you need paper, you need colored pencils, or you're using markers or whatever. You want to go
Yeah.
create this, like they were, doing something kind of just a fun summer project that they were doing on their own. We want to do this. Go, okay, well, what do you need? Get it ready, get everything that you need,
Yeah.
and then go
Yeah.
to it. So yeah,
Well,
so it's
yeah.
easily something that translates.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I think that may be my new favorite word. I'll have to start incorporating
Three
that around the
words.
house.
Yes, three
Oh,
words.
is it? Oh,
Mise,
so it's three
yes,
words.
three words.
Ah,
Yeah, Miseen and then Place. So mise
ah.
en
Oh,
place.
okay.
Yes,
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
little
Yeah.
phrase. Yes.
Yeah, it's a phrase. Okay. But regardless, I'll have to institute that because that'd be a lot easier to say as I'm going through the house, rather than, hey, pick this up, hey, let's put this away. But
Oh yes,
just
absolutely.
shout mise en place, and everyone will
That's
know.
right. And clap your
Everyone
hand three
scatters and
times.
starts putting things away.
That's right. Yes, clap three times, and then they'll
Yeah.
all know. Oh, wait, hold on. Our
Yes.
Father has spoken. He has
Yeah,
issued a decree
right,
from on
right.
high. Yeah, stand on the couch or something, to do it.
Yeah, the
And
coffee table.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
But no, that's interesting. So there was an anonymous quote that says, "For every minute spent organizing, an hour is earned." Basically saying like we've been talking about this entire time about the benefits. Whenever we take time to create a plan, create structure, to make sure things are in order, we're actually gaining time. Yes, it takes time to plan, but because you're taking that, let's say 20, 30 minutes to plan the day or plan the week, plan your meals, yeah, it takes time to do that. But how much time are you saving then throughout the week by not having to run to the grocery store or figure out what's for dinner? And so, yeah, it's important. And it's also biblical. It's not like these things are strictly, separate from biblical standards. In 1 Corinthians 14:40, it says, but all things should be done decently and in order. Right. There's order. I mean, you see from the beginning when God created the heavens and the earth. I mean, he didn't chaotically just throw things. I think I'd like a star here and maybe a giraffe here. And, I mean, it was done in order. Each day he accomplished what he wanted to accomplish. Then he stopped. And then the next day, that type of order. And that should be built into our lives as well. And you see at the end of the creation period where God looked on what he created, he said, it's good. He called it good, right? And when we reach the end of our day, the end of our week, and so on, when we've been intentional and created a plan, it may not have gone perfectly, but we have a lot more probably opportunity or likelihood of being able to look back and say, yeah, that was a good day. Yeah, it wasn't perfect, but I got complete what I needed to get done. I was able to work in that spontaneity. Dinner was great, and I knew we were going to have it because we discussed it over the weekend. All of those things. I had time to hang out with the kids and my wife, and I got this project done because we planned, and you were able to get it done.
Yeah, and then he rested. Yeah, you know, I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
even that
great
was
point.
planned. You know, again, it's if we were talking about an exercise plan, well, you can't just go out and randomly decide that you're going to, lift heavy weights every day of the week. That's a
Yeah,
bad idea. So
yeah,
you better have okay, what is my rest day? Am I going to do an AV split? Am I going to do, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, where I'm doing every other, but I'm doing full body? I mean, you have to, again, be organized, have a plan because, again, as you listen to people who are experts in that realm, if you just go in there and randomly going, all right, let's see. Well, the bench is free. Let me grab that. I'll do that. And then, yeah, why not some leg curls? And I got to work on the biceps. So, I mean, if you have a random kind of randomized strategy when you go in there, yeah, maybe okay, at least you're doing something, but that's not going to be good for your long-term overall goals if you have any, or long-term health. You're just randomly picking
yeah,
stuff. And maybe you
yeah,
had organized even that I'm going on this day, but if you don't take a little bit longer term view and go, all right, what am I trying to do? How long am I going to do it for? What am I going to work on today? If you don't have a plan, then of course you're planning to fail. So
sure, yeah,
it's definitely much better to go, all right, here's what's built in. Here's the rest day. Even too, like with meal plan, if you're going, all right, so we're going to plan out. We've got Monday through Friday, but Saturday, we're just going to kind of see what we feel like, and maybe that is our one meal that we kind of let the kids pick, or that we just go, you know what, let's maybe go out for that night, and maybe one of these handful, we're going to, kind of stay around our area and where, again, you can enjoy it. You can have fun. You can kind of build in that spontaneity, but it's something that you're already planned out. You are
right.
already laid out going, okay, I know what I'm going to do. That way I can enjoy it.
Yeah. So I think most people would agree that there are a lot of benefits to at least general structure and organization and taking time to plan. So why are there so many people who live disorganized, unorganized lives? And three of those reasons, number one, is the environment in which they grew up in. They may have not have seen organization displayed, so they don't even realize the benefits. Disorganization or being unorganized is just a way of life for them. They don't know any different. They've never been trained or taught. So a chaotic life is just what they're used to. So their environment, a lack of space. We were talking about hoarding, or not even just hoarding, but people who live in small spaces sometimes find it hard to be organized because if you're in an area, or even let's say you're in your office environment, if you're in a very constricted space and you have a lot to do, you may find it hard to remain organized because there's just so much. Maybe you have a lot of I don't know, filing, paperwork responsibility. If a lot of stuff has gone digital now, so it may not be a great example, but whatever it is, you just don't feel like you have the space. And what happens is, it's not that those people maybe don't care, they don't want to be organized, they feel they kind of give up. It's like, I don't have the space, I can't be organized, there's no room for filing or organization in this space. And that could happen again in a home, in an office space, wherever. And then sometimes it's a lack of tools. They don't know, they don't use the tools that are available to us to remain organized. And you're talking about examples. I mean, our phones are a perfect way to remain organized. We have basically, back in the day, we would have. Did you ever have a Palm Pilot by chance? I
No,
remember.
no, I know, obviously I know what you're talking about, but no, I never
Yeah,
actually had one.
yeah. I had one back when I was project managing. I remember I loved it. I mean, because you could write down everything that needed to happen on a project, whatever you need to get done in the day. I mean, it was great. And so I had one of those. Of course, I had the BlackBerry back then, and some people would have like physical books they would write stuff down in to keep track,
Yeah.
schedulers and all that. But the great thing about it is all of those resources now is just a click away on your phone through an app. So in some ways, the tools are easier than ever to use and to have access to remain organized. But it's also, having the phone is a big promoter of becoming disorganized, because what happens is we're distracted so easily away from what's important. Earlier, we were talking about priorities, and our phones, it happens to be, I'm sure it happens to everybody. You go to your phone maybe for one specific task. Oh, let me see what I have on my calendar today. What do I need to get accomplished? And oh, while I'm there, let me check out social media. Let me check out the weather. Let
Hmm.
me check out my emails. All of these things start to cascade in and say, they distract us. And, maybe an hour later, 30 or 45 minutes later, you're still scanning through. It's like, well, I just blew that hour. So we do have to be careful that we have the tools to remain organized, yet we're not allowing even those tools to distract us from getting things done. Some people are great planners. They can plan out an entire project, but until you start to implement the plan, it's just on paper, or it's just jotted in your notes section on your iPhone. We have to take time to plan, but then also execute those plans and not get distracted with everything that's going on around us.
Yeah, it's funny, as much as we kind of talk about phones and stuff like that, and some of the inherent evils maybe that come with them, there is a lot of good that come with our smartphones. I think most of the kind of the stuff that we don't like are more of the social media apps, or there's some of those other things that distract us. And you're absolutely right. It's funny. I have had, thankfully, for the last several years, have had two phones. I've had a phone that's through work, so I have a work phone, and then I have my personal phone. On my work phone, I have no apps whatsoever in terms of social media, in terms of the sports apps, even my banking apps, nothing like that. It is basically, there's a work app that we use, I have a calendar, I have email, and it is easy to see, to just stay focused on that and to not be distracted, to use it to be as organized as I need to be able to pull up my calendar, to go, all right, where am I going next? What email do I need to respond to? I use the notes section to keep track of different jobs. I know you use reminders a lot, to, hey, remind me at 2 o'clock to call Miss Sally, or whatever the case may be. So I know that it is extremely easy on my personal phone. And there's been times with different jobs where I've had to use that. It is a lot easier to get distracted, to do exactly like you said. Well, I need to check the email, and I wonder, who won last night's game. Let me just look at that real quick and see. So it's definitely a pitfall, and not that everyone needs to run out by a second phone, but to be disciplined in some way, to go, all right, when I use this, I need to use it for its full capabilities, or at least during the workday, and not be tempted to go over, whether I kind of group them together and I just try to avoid that one particular grouping, that I know is, real easy to do with your phone now. I remember hearing someone asked Andrew Huberman about social media and how do you not get tempted to go on that. And he said, delete it from your phone every day. And if you have to go through the steps every morning of kind of reopening, re-signing in to that app, see if it slows you down anyway. He said, because otherwise, if it's on there, you're going to look at it, you're going to check it. And I think there's a lot of validity to that, that if you go, oh man, I wish I could just stay off of this, I could stay off of that, delete it, and if you have to sign back in, so be it. That you make it at least make you go through that extra step to go, all right, do I really want to check? Do I really care? What Bill's Christmas lights look like, or if they're still up on his house, even though it's July. I mean, it at least slows you down a little bit and maybe gives you that pause to go, maybe I should turn my attention elsewhere.
Yeah. I thought you were going to talk about Andrew Huberman actually said as well that he doesn't even have the password to his social media accounts. He
Yeah.
gives it to, I think, his secretary or something, and it's a new one every week. So he has to get the password in order to log in. If he's going to log into, I think he allows himself like a certain short amount of time to go through, answer questions, and do updates. And then he's
Right.
back
Yeah.
off again.
Yeah,
And
and I know he said for someone like him, yeah, it's needed.
yeah,
He has to be on there to have a presence, I guess, to a degree. But yeah, but he doesn't want to constantly be on there.
right. Yeah. So he's put things in place to control that. And for us guys, it's important for us. Reading a devotional right now called Guardrails. It's important for us in life in general to have guardrails in place where we don't try to get as close as we can to any type of failure or sin before actually doing that thing. We need to have guardrails in place to keep us a distance away. And it's not about willpower. It's about being responsible. It's about having things in place to keep us moving the right direction. But even with things like this, do we have guardrails in place that help us to manage our time well? If we know we are, social media just sucks us in, and as soon as we start looking, we can't stop scrolling. It's feeding that dopamine and that serotonin and all that. It
Hmm.
just keeps that grip on us. Then let's put some things in place like he talked about that help us to manage that better. But a lot of it also has to do with the type of personality that people have. Certain personalities are either more in favor or less in favor of or inclined to be more organized. So that some of the people who are or may tend to be less organized are those who focus on a big picture type scenario. They look at the big picture. Here's what I want to see happen in a year. And they have this grand idea, and it may be a totally great idea, but they have trouble focusing on the smaller details. So they spend so much time focusing on the big, a lot of the little stuff kind of falls and it begins to pile up and then creates chaos, trying to figure out how to get it all done and keep moving forward. Another are procrastinators, people who continually put things off. They have good intentions. We talk about being intentional, and there's basically, I'll say, two types of guys. There's intentional men, and there's men with good intentions. Men with good intentions, they want to do the right thing. And in this case, they want to be organized. They want to prioritize and get things done in the day that need to be done, and not be cluttered, not be chaotic. They have good intentions, but they never put things into practice. They never make any changes to allow that. They don't plan for their day. And then there are intentional men who have the same goal. They want to get the things done they're supposed to get done, focus on the things that need focused on. They actually take life and address it and approach life purposefully, like we were speaking about earlier. And there's so many people out there with good intentions that continually do the same thing over and over and continually fail over and over because they never make a change. And it can make us feel good momentarily to say, well, I want to get better. I want to do this. I have good intentions, but until the rubber meets the road, until we actually start to put these things in practice and make changes, then it's going to be the same thing every day. The same, get to the end of the day and again, it's chaos. You didn't get the things done that should have been done. There's no time. There's no extra time for family and just having fun or those types of things. So again, our personalities have a lot to do with it. And even talking about distractions, some people are more distracted than others. They're more prone to distractions. Some people are really good at focusing, zeroing in, focusing on what needs to get done. And it's almost like they have an internal filing cabinet where all the drawers remain closed, all the files remain closed, except the one they need to work on. And they focus on that, they get it done, they file it away in their brain, and then they move to the next thing. Other people, it's like every door of the filing cabinet's open and every file is open in each drawer, and they're just bouncing from one to the other, and nothing ever gets completed fully. And again, in their mind, everything just starts to get jumbled up and it's hard to keep track of anything. And again, this leads to significant disorganization.
It's funny that's you almost described perfectly my wife and I. I usually say more compartmentalized, to where if I need to sit down, work, I do it. It's almost like I have blinders on. Okay, this needs to be done, I'm going to do it. And I kind of block everything else out, and it's done. I get it knocked out. However long it takes, and then I'm done and I'm on to the next thing. And it's funny, that's not always a good thing in terms of having children, because I know she has said, if we're here, we both happen to be in the office, we're both working, I can just, I can kind of tune out if there's a little bit of bickering, fighting, where she hears it. And I think that's a little bit different, probably too, between a father and a mother, is that she has constantly got her radar up and listening to that. And yet if there's a little bit and maybe it kind of fizzled out and they worked it out, it distracts her. She hears that and then she's thinking, are they okay? Do I need to step in? Who's doing what? Are they safe? Okay, now I've got to go back to this email and try to figure it out. And so, it can become very frustrating for someone that's like that too, because they go, man, I just needed to return, a handful of emails, and here I am an hour and a half later and I'm still working on it. How come you're done? You said you had, X, Y, Z to do and you're already finished and out the door. Like, well, unfortunately, I do have that ability. It's not always a great thing, but it is something I'm very aware of. And I think that's part two of having a partner who I am aware of does not think that way. So if she needs help with something, go, okay, how can I help you to do that? Same time too, going, all right, I need, this project we need to get done. I need you to tell me kind of what's your vision, what's the overall goal, because she can see the big picture, and then I can go, okay, how am I going to fill it in? How are we going to get there? How are we going to get to the end? I think, as you were referring to in business, that's very important. If someone that realizes that they are a big picture, but maybe they have trouble with the details, they need to have very good kind of the worker bees. They need to have people under them that can carry out that vision, that can handle the day-to-day, they can handle the ins and outs. And okay, how do we move from this point to that point? How do we get there? Because if not, then you're just kind of spinning in circles and no one really gets any clear answers, and it becomes difficult for everyone that's there, because you maybe have great intentions, but you never do anything about it. And that's, I think you've used the analogy before about like Steve Jobs. If he comes and goes, okay, I have this idea. It's something, it's called an iPad. We're going to move that, 50 disc CD case into one little, kind of couple inch by couple inch thing. That's my goal. That's what I want to do. How do we get there? Well, then I guess would have a hand in the design and kind of the overall, but he would have who knows how many people underneath going, okay, what do we need to do with the technology? How are we going to skip songs? How are we going to play songs? He would have all kind of people working under him in order to carry out that vision. And it's not a relinquishing of power. It's not you going, okay, well, if I let them do it, it's no longer my vision. A good leader and someone, if we're going to be good leaders in our home, is recognizing the strengths and weaknesses of everyone there and letting them do it, letting yourself be helped to go, okay, I need to get here. How are we going to do that? I think that's a positive. That's not a negative. And if you are more organized, then doing so, going, okay, here's what we need to do, and I'm going to rely on these people to do this. And the same time, if you're not one of those people who can compartmentalize, who are organized, okay, well, then how much time are you going to need to get your work done or to get this task accomplished? And who can I depend on to help keep me organized?
Yeah, a good leader empowers his people.
Exactly.
No one person has all the answers. And that's, again, plays right into what we're talking about here. If we're going to be organized, we have to realize that we cannot do everything on our own. We do need other people within your own household, like you're talking about. We need to work together, and that's one of the things that we talk about with our kids. It's like, hey, talking about allowances, or how do they earn money? So, well, guys, I'm not going to pay you to help around the house, just basic stuff. I mean, we're a family. We work together. Some people are going to do the dishes. Some people are going to maybe vacuum, whatever it is, whatever the different chores are. But going back to the sunroom remodel, I wanted to make sure that we're not replacing the windows. So I said, hey, I want to make sure these things are, that they look brand new. So I told a couple of the kids, hey, if you guys want to really invest some time in cleaning these really, really well, down in the tracks, all the details, make them look, I want them to look brand new. So I'll pay you, because that's not a normal thing. But yeah, I mean, could I have done it? Yes, but it would just been one more thing that I had to do. So in a way, I'm kind of empowering them, because they could have said, honestly, in this case, they could have said, no, we don't really want to do that. I said, okay, fine. You don't have to. You're not going to get, obviously, this extra money I'm offering you, but that's okay. You don't have to. I'll do it and keep my money. So it's, but again, it's empowering to give them the opportunity, and a good leader will do that. They'll recognize, hey, I don't even have to have all the answers. I need to have the vision for the project, but also recognize those around me. They may have ways to get toward that vision that I'm not thinking about. So again, it goes hand in hand with what we're talking about with being organized on a much larger level in this case.
Yeah, I'm curious too, to go back to something you're talking about as well with procrastination. What do you think is maybe some key differences between working under pressure and procrastinating? Because I know that's something that you'll hear a lot of times. Oh, well, I work better under pressure, so I'm going to wait until 2 days before this is due to get done, even though I know I've got a month. Obviously we see that with and never that I would ever do this, when people were students, going, it's like, well, that's not just working under pressure. You are procrastinating. You are waiting. Kind of is the example, if your parents are coming, if you said, okay, I'm going to wait until a week before they're going to get here, and then I'm going to start doing this project. And I don't know if it's going to take a week or not, but basically you procrastinated and waited, and maybe you're telling yourself that it's because you like to work under pressure, that you work better under pressure, but really it was just a form of procrastination, right? So how do we kind of make that line, make going, all right, well, this is changing from working under pressure to just truly procrastinating, not doing it?
Yeah, I think, and there will be people that disagree for sure, but I think at the root of procrastination is probably a hint of laziness. You don't
Mm-hmm.
really want to do it. It's not your favorite thing to do. May not be in your, you know, your list of, I like to do these things, or I'm good at these things, so I'm going to put it off. And you either don't do anything else until then, or you slide some other things that maybe be less important into the place and do those things. And that's something else you'll see with people who procrastinate. It's not necessarily they're not doing anything, they're just not doing the important things. So rather than tackling this task that has to be done by a certain date, they'll say, well, I'm going to do this, this, and this. These things need to be done. It would be kind of like, using the bathroom remodel example, say, all right, my parents are going to visit in a month. So I've got 4 weeks to get this bathroom remodeled. And I go and I plan what needs to happen with the bathroom remodel. So, okay, we need this tile, this, this tub, this, whatever, vanity, all these things. This is what we need. And I've got it written down, got the list. And rather than going ahead and say, okay, let's get started, let's tackle this thing, start doing the demo, getting the things ordered, whatever. I say, hey, let's look at these light fixtures and let's see what styles we like best, whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but if you spend so much time on the small things that aren't critical to getting started, then, or even better, let's look at the toilet paper roll that we're going to use, the toilet paper holder, something inconsequential to the project. We say, well, yes, it has to do with the project, so I'm going to focus on this, and it makes us feel good. It's like, okay, I'm working on the project, but you're really not. You're wasting valuable time where you could be investing in the big project. So for people who procrastinate, I think, versus people who work well under pressure, I think it has to do with, why are you delaying? And procrastinators, they delay because they're really not excited about undertaking the project. Someone who works well under pressure, they may not delay at all. They may get the same thing, says, hey, I didn't know. My parents told me they're going to be here in 2 weeks. I want to get this bathroom done. Yes, it's a lot of pressure, but I can get it done because I work well under pressure. Rather than waiting 2 weeks to get started, if I had a month, that's procrastinating. I find out I've got 2 weeks to get it done, and I didn't know that up front. Now I'm working under pressure and I'm getting it done, and that's okay because that's my style. So again, that's how I would look at it. Do you agree with that, or do you view it differently at all?
Yeah, no, I think that's probably, I would say procrastination is almost more of a self-imposed form of pressure, because you're right. The pressure, there's times to where someone says, hey, I need this tomorrow. Well, no, you've got a deadline. You've got to work under pressure. You've got to get something done.
Exactly.
With your example, maybe your parents go, oh, nope, we're actually going to be here 2 weeks earlier. And you go, oh, okay, well, that's pressure. You didn't do it. You didn't delay.
Right.
And with a lot of people, maybe with the procrastination, they got everything. They planned everything out. Maybe, with your bathroom, you got all your materials, and then you kind of slow down because you got, man, the first thing I got to do is demo that old tile. And that's going to just stink. Like, it's going to be loud. It's going to be slow. It's going to be difficult. I don't know what I'm going to find. And it's almost like you're kind of avoiding it, so maybe there's a bit of avoidance in there for someone that does have a deadline 2 weeks from now for, whatever, and they know it's really only going to take them a day or so, and they procrastinate. It's because they're avoiding it. They don't want to do it. With the example that I was using with like the chefs and the mise en place, well, when the doors open at whatever time, say 5 o'clock, well, then that's pressure. activate it and automatically say, oh, I'm going to wait till the last minute to make this dish. They don't know what, someone's going to order. If they had waited to get all of their ingredients prepared, that was procrastination. That was self-imposed because they knew it was coming. They knew they were going to have all these different things that they needed, all the different components. And if they hadn't done it, yet, then that's a problem. That was self-imposed. So I think that's a little bit of a difference, at least for me anyway, is pressure a lot of times comes from the outside. We don't necessarily have a control over it. Whereas procrastination, a lot of times maybe we do. That's almost like we're putting off something that we really don't want to do for one reason or another. Maybe we're not good at it. Maybe we just don't enjoy it. Maybe it's going to be hard. Maybe it's going to be difficult and we're trying to avoid that. So I think that's a little bit more self-imposed.
Yeah, I like that. It's a good way to describe it. Yeah. So knowing that it is a good idea to be organized, what are some things we can do if we're not already, if we don't find ourselves a very organized person? What steps can we take to get more organized, to become more organized? Some of the things I found, or one of the things I found, I'll let you add some as well. We already mentioned approach life intentionally. Don't let life happen to you. You happen to life. You take ownership of it and live life and plan. Another one that we've talked about some is having a daily routine. Having a routine, and we've said this. There's nothing wrong with a routine. It's good. It can be helpful. I have a routine. Begins at 5 o'clock in the morning and ends at about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And I do basically the same things every single day, except, weekends have a different routine, but you follow what I'm saying. So having a daily routine can help us to be more organized because we're fitting in the basic things in our schedule that we're going to do. My daily routine roughly is at 5 o'clock. I get up, I go straight to the kitchen. I get some creatine in my water. I head out to the gym, work out. About 6 o'clock, I'm back in. I get my yogurt and blueberries ready, and I have a devotion and eat, and then my 4 eggs, and then I'm heading off to work. And then, around midday or so, eating lunch, and then back home, and, just the same thing, dinner. And then after dinner, my wife and I train together, back in the gym again. And then at the end of the day, there's time for just hanging out with the family, hanging out with the kids. And then 9:30, that's when I start to hit the bed. That's my bedtime. Some people say it's pretty early, but I like to make sure I get close to 8 hours of sleep a night. So I'm very intentional with that. Even on the weekends, a lot of times between 9:30 and 10 o'clock, I'm in the bed and making sure that I'm taking care of myself, getting that rest. What's your daily routine look like? I'm curious.
Yeah, mine varies a little bit. I would say first, I think for people that are trying to get started, that they should try it. I remember hearing Layne Norton, who we've referenced to, who's just an incredible wealth of of knowledge when it comes to nutrition and physiologist and all this kind of stuff. But it was great because he said, people would be amazed if they think they're eating well, if they track their macros and they weighed their food. Every meal, everything that they ate, they tracked it for like 2 weeks. Then they would go, whoa, how much am I getting? How much sugar? Am I really getting enough protein? What is my portion size? That they would really be shocked. And he said that so many people would change if they would just do that. If they would do it just for a couple of weeks, it would give them an idea of what they're doing and then be able to adjust from that. I think it's the same thing with trying to be organized, that if you start off trying to make lists, maybe meal planning, going, I am going to set up my day. Now, again, however, whatever blocks you use, that you're going to say, okay, from this time, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to have breakfast. This is what I'm going to have for breakfast. Then I'm going to do, if it's driving to work, if it's working at this time, I'm going to have lunch. While I'm at work, I'm going to try to accomplish these things. And maybe for a lot of people, they go, you're out of your mind. There's no way I'm going to do that. No way I'm going to stick to it. But if you actually want to be intentional, as we've been saying, maybe you do that for a couple of weeks, a month. And at the end of it, you go, I am not doing this anymore, but you know what? I did kind of like, I didn't have to think about my meals. I liked it that I felt more rested because I went to bed within this kind of rough time frame. So I think, again, that we have to adjust for our own individual preferences, but we have to have some structure. And if we try some things that we think are foreign, that we're not going to like, we're not going to enjoy, we go, oh, wow, I actually, do that. Like I was talking about with sleep, I used to be really bad about that. Yeah, I think I've told you that before, that I was kind of from the mindset, and thankfully this has changed tremendously, and that the research that is out there has proved it. But I was one of those, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to outwork somebody else. If I get 3, 4 hours of sleep, great. I'll sleep on the weekend, or be kind of a sleep camel. And then you realize that doesn't work. That is scientifically proven. It doesn't work. You can't just, go on 3, 4 hours a night and then try to sleep 8 or 9 on the weekend and think you're all caught up. Doesn't work. Doesn't happen. But being actually trying and go, okay, that's you've obviously got a little bit more of an early riser chronotype, that makes it a little bit easier. Go to bed, 9:30 or so, wake up at 5. My personal preference, if I didn't have to, and for a lot of times I was waking up really early because I had to, and still going to bed later just because my body was going, okay, I like to go to bed if I was going to have ideal between, say, like 10:30 and 11. Well, if I'm getting up at 4 and 5, that's not going to be good.
Right.
It's not going to
Yeah.
be good for
Yeah.
me. So now I go, okay, so I can either try to shift it where I'm going to bed a little bit earlier, or if I am going to bed 10:30 or 11, then I have to adjust my wake up time, and maybe it's around 7. So I have really kind of tried to do that to where now, the very long-winded way of going in answering your question, I am typically, it does depend if it is school time or not, because right now it's a little bit different being the summer, to where we don't have to kind of get out, make sure the boys are up and they're ready. But say during the majority of the year when they are in school, I would usually get up 6:30 or so, get out. We actually have chickens, so I go let them from their coop, put them in their tractor coop, make sure the dogs are fed, start coffee, all that kind of stuff, make sure that the boys are up, their breakfast is prepared, go take a shower, come back down. It's funny too that as we were talking about a little bit earlier with apps and stuff like that, I am, as I've told you, a football junkie, and so I know I want to read about stuff that's going on through the week, even when there's no games. Like a random Wednesday, there's no game on Wednesday. There was no game on Tuesday usually. But I still like reading about the different players, and if it's college, what visits are coming in from the high school players and all that. So I will allow myself time in the morning when I'm like drinking coffee, having breakfast, to where, okay, for that 20, 30 minutes, I'm going to be, I'm going to look at a couple of different apps and go, okay, let me see, kind of check and then I'm good. And then I can put it off until the next day, or until maybe that evening as I'm winding down or something like that, to where I don't have to constantly check it. I'm not looking and trying to find out what's going on during the day. I can be more productive, but I've built time in knowing I want to know that. That's something that I enjoy. So when can I do it to where it works for me, to where it doesn't interfere with anything else? Well, if I'm just sitting there, kind of at times either eating my Greek yogurt and blueberries and nuts and stuff like that, or the eggs, and I'm just sitting there, I've got time for it. We've talked earlier on another podcast about, like, if somebody wanted to learn a language or you wanted to do something, when can you do that? Well, maybe that was during that morning coffee time, to where it's not going to interfere. Or people, if you want to get up, that's when you want to have your quiet time. That's when you want to have some time where you can meditate. Well, maybe that's what works for you, that you can do it in the morning. If you're just not a morning person and you don't want to talk to anybody before 10 a.m., maybe you build that in at the end of the day, as part of your evening routine, to go, okay, as part of my evening routine at 10, 10:30, 11, whatever time you decide you're going to bed, I'm going to take 15 minutes, and that's going to be kind of that me time, to where I'm going to have quiet time. I'm going to read a devotional. I'm just going to kind of unwind and let all that go. And then I'm going to be at peace, and I'm going to drift off to sleep a lot faster. So, it definitely is important to at least try to have some structure, some organization, and then find out what works for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's good. So approaching life intentionally, developing a routine. Another one is using tools available to us. We talked about some of those tools they're so easy to put into use on our phones and other iPads, whatever you like to use. Prioritizing is a big deal. Taking time to look at the different things you would like to get done in a day or a week, and then prioritizing them. Okay, so if I can't fit it all in, what are the most important things? What are the critical things that I need to get done? And starting with those, and not being distracted by the less important things. And then not overcommitting. We've talked about that some. And another one for just being organized is having defined spaces. Going back to your phrase, having defined spaces for things. Now, this is more about being organized in your office or in your home itself, but having a place where everything goes so that number one, it looks neater, but number two, when you need something, you know where to find it. It's not chaotic looking all over the house trying to find your wrench. It's like, no, I know it's in my toolbox in the third drawer on the right-hand side. That's where I keep my wrenches. So having defined spaces, but having defined spaces can go beyond just tools and things. Having defined spaces for what we do in life. Like if you have a devotional time in the morning, for some people, it might be best to have a defined space because once you're in that space, you know what you're there for. It's one of the things they talked about on the podcast. Who does the sleep studies? Who was that?
Matthew Walker. Yeah, that was Andrew Huberman and Matthew Walker. Yeah, I was actually going to reference that. Yeah.
Yeah, he talks about
how.
Go ahead. Yeah, it talks about how there's in the bedroom, you shouldn't have, his opinion is, and we don't, you shouldn't have TV, you shouldn't have a bunch of distractions. The bedroom is set aside for sleep. So when you go to the room, hey, it's time to sleep. If you're married, other things too. But it's time for
Logging
sleeping.
The covers you're talking about, right? Yeah, battling over the covers. I'm sure is what you're referring to there.
Yeah. So but there's a defined space for sleeping. One of the things it says is if you have trouble sleeping at night, don't go out and fall asleep on the couch because then you start to identify that space with sleep. So again, though, on a broad sense, defining spaces, I'm going to have my devotion in the study or in my living room or wherever it is for you. But once you get settled into that space at your particular time, that's what you're there for. It's not to scroll social media. It's not to check emails or any variety of other things. This is my devotion time. I'm in my devotional time space. And again, you can apply that to a lot of different areas, even within your work day. If you're in an office, you can even create the space there. When I am focusing on answering emails, I do certain things to create that space in order to be able to get that done. Like you were talking about earlier, I can focus. I'm not going to be distracted by anything else. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to knock this out, get this done, and move on to the next thing. But the better we can kind of compartmentalize to a degree, everybody can't do that specifically depending on what their career is or their life dynamic. But the more we can kind of create those spaces, I think the more effective we'll be in becoming organized and living a less chaotic life.
Yeah, I think that's all really good. I used to chuckle when I would hear or see people that had like a Zen garden or a meditation garden or space. And now I'm going, you know what? They were onto something because that's where they would go, okay, I'm going to unwind. I'm going to breathe. This is my space. This is kind of my, not necessarily their happy place, but this is my space where I'm going to go to do this task. We had a longtime family friend who used to work from home before that was even a thing, back when everyone was going to an office. He was an insurance adjuster. And so he would constantly be going out to different properties. He would work from his home, but he would say that to kind of set that up, he had an office, but he wouldn't just kind of walk downstairs, grab a cup of coffee and then walk into the office and go, okay, time to start. He said he would usually almost every day that he would go down, he would get in his car, he would drive to a local gas station or coffee shop, he would get a coffee, he would come back home, park, and walk right into his office. He was going to work. He had that defined space, but he was kind of defining it for himself and going, okay, I am going to get my my mind right and that I'm going to do this. And you're right. I love that. That sleep study that Matthew Walker and Andrew Huberman went through, that 6-part series, it was great on so many levels, but they were talking about the actual brain reaction, that your brain has all these little associations that we don't even realize. And that when you are in bed, like doing work, and a lot of people, I'm not one of them, but that will sit there and will either scroll social media or even maybe worse, you would have your laptop or your iPad and you're just typing out some reports or emails or responding to people, that your brain actually is associating that space with work, with activity, and it's not fully relaxing. So why did it take me an hour and a half to fall asleep? Well, because your brain went, okay, what are we doing today? What are we going to get involved in? These things that we go, oh, that's silly. That doesn't have anything to do with it. They actually studied it. They didn't just kind of randomly come up with these theories that they think sound good. They were doing randomized controlled trials going, no, this is legitimate. Here's why. We can prove it in multiple studies. So having those spaces to where we go, nope, I'm not going to have these different items around here. This is where I sleep. This is where I work. This is where I pray, meditate, whatever. That obviously it makes sense. That is where we need to do that task. And that helps us keep us on task, which therefore makes us more organized.
Right, right. And it all goes back to being intentional. We have to create those spaces. We have to implement those things because it's going to be real easy for us to divert. And then, it again, going back to Andrew Huberman, we're referencing him a lot today, but he says that the first time, if I miss a workout, it's okay. Don't miss 2 in a row. Definitely don't miss 3 in a row. So if you have to divert away from your kind of your daily routine, your structure, one day, okay, whatever, you haven't blown it. Things come up, life happens. But in general, keep that routine in place to make sure that you're getting the things done in an organized way. But the other thing we do need to be aware of is we need to allow ourselves the opportunity for change. As life happens, we may have to change that routine, and we can't get so stuck in a rut that we refuse to do anything differently. One example, my wife started a new job this week, actually. And before, our evening routine was after dinner every night. We went into our gym and we worked out for an hour or two together, and then went on with the rest of the evening. Well, now because she's working, we had to change things up a little bit. She's still home. We're still doing dinner at the regular time, but just because of the additional kind of mental requirements with that, we wanted to change things up a little bit just to give her some time to relax.
Sure.
So I put together a new workout training plan for her where she is basically doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday workouts, and then Tuesday and Thursday and Saturday is just cardio. So it's just, they're a little bit lighter days, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So again, we could have got locked in and say, nope, it's 5 days a week. It's, you're going to, stick to the same schedule, and basically could have just turned it into a very negative experience because we refused to do anything differently. But looking at the new dynamic that we're in, okay, how's this fit? Doesn't really fit now. Let's come up with something that's better, still a routine, but one that fits our life better. Now, she's enjoying where she is. She's enjoying her new career, and she's also remaining healthy, not giving up the training and all that she's been investing in. So we as men have to realize there are times when we're going to have to adjust. We're going to have to modify our schedules, but we don't just throw the schedule out the window. We don't just throw the routine out the window and say, well, my life, there's no way I can keep one, so I'm just going to give up on it. Right?
Right, right, absolutely. Being organized does not mean being rigid, not having any flexibility built in to where we don't realize we need to make a change. Just like, as I've said, my routine, I would come home in the evening and put my stuff down, put all my stuff away if I had brought lunch, kind of get ready for the next day. Well, I realized that I need to even make a little minor adjustment. When I came home, I need to go say, hello, wife, and kiss her hello. I need to go speak to my children, and then maybe do that other stuff, not be so beholden to my routine that it makes me seem cold and distant when that's not my intent at all. It's like, no, I'm just kind of, merrily going along to where I'm prepared and organized for the next time. It's just a small adjustment like that. I needed to be aware of others. And certainly when we have those bigger changes, like you said, that, yeah, we have to be aware of that. If we are a particular type to where we like to go to bed late, sleep late, and maybe we have a job that affords us that ability. Well, if we got kids that need to get to school, that might be a problem. They might be working around and going, I can't go to school at 10:30. It just doesn't work that way. So we might have to make a temporary adjustment. We might have to maybe it's not our ideal, but we've got to adjust because, as you said, life happens to where we can't be so rigid and going, well, sorry, this is what works for me. Well, we have to understand there's others in the world. I know this is shocking, but we are not the center of the universe, and everyone does not have to revolve around us. So we need to be organized, but we need to be flexible within that too, to where we can still have a plan. We can still have routines set up, but they're not so set in stone that we think that this is, on par with the 10 Commandments coming down from on high, that these have to be done. some things are non-negotiable. Routines are really not one of them. Obviously, they're going to change and change over time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, finishing up with a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt said, "It takes as much energy to wish as it does to plan." I thought that was good. Again, going back to being intentional and being purposeful with our days and with our life. No, we don't just want to sit around and wish things were better, wish we were more organized, wish our days were not chaotic. We can make a plan and we can put that in place. And I feel like a lot of the things we talked about today can help us to do that by realizing how important it is, the benefits of it, and even recognizing in our own selves obstacles that may be around us or even within our personality that make it more difficult for us to be intentionally you know organized, but because we can recognize those things in ourselves, we're able to overcome them. We're able to address them and say, okay, yep, this is going to be hard. This is not my natural tendency, but I do want the benefits. So I'm going to try those things. Like you said, I'm going to try some steps. May not like them all, may not continue to implement every single one of them, but I'm going to work towards being more organized in my life. So thanks for everything that you pitched in today. I knew you'd have some great comments to share because I know this is part of your wheelhouse, man. You're definitely an organized guy, and I've seen that played out, and I've seen the benefits of it, of course, in your life, and I've seen it in mine as well. How it's a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable to live in an organized way and not a chaotic, disorganized, or unorganized manner. So. Any closing remarks? Any final bits of wisdom you'd like to share?
Well, there's always something, right?
Yes.
No, no, I appreciate it. Enjoy the conversation today. I think it is for those of us that this comes naturally, that this comes easily, that this is kind of part of our personality. That for those that it doesn't, we have to cut them a little bit of a break as well, and maybe there's some that, especially I would say for those that we are close to, that we care about, especially if it is our spouse, child, something like that, that maybe there's gentle ways that we can help them or nudge them, but we don't have to say, well, why wouldn't you do this? You have to do X, Y, Z in order to get there. We have to understand that, again, everyone is different. Everyone is an individual. We have to allow them their space to figure that out. And so rather than being critical, being harmful, with being judgmental, maybe we could be a little bit more tolerant. Maybe we could help them. Maybe we could say, okay, so you want to do this. I get it. You got a great idea. How are you going to get there? And let's help guide them along to help them be a little bit more organized rather than just browbeating them or looking down upon them because it doesn't come naturally to them. It's really easy when something comes easy to us to then look down on others to where it doesn't. So I think we need to keep that in mind as well as we're going about our day, or either trying to be more organized or maybe wishing that others around us were. Let's be helpful rather than being harmful to them.
Right. So basically looking at them and shaking your head, not
Yes,
helpful.
that not helpful, not sighing heavily, rolling your eyes. That's I have been told that's not helpful. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm making mental notes. And so also like creating a schedule for someone else and slipping it into their like book they read from or something, not a good idea either. So, okay. So
well, you let me know how that works out. Yes.
You'll try that one.
Yes. So, and as you were saying earlier, sleeping on the couch, you maybe keep that in mind.
Right, exactly. Oh, no, that's a great point. Yeah, we need to be aware that it's not everyone's natural tendency. And just because someone may find themselves good at it doesn't mean that's how everybody technically operates. So yeah, cut them some slack and within your routine, your daily schedule, build in some time for patience with others who aren't like you.
Right.
So guys, thank you for joining us today. It's been great discussing the importance of being organized in our life, and we hope that you've got something from this. If you have any comments or questions you'd like to shoot our way, please feel free to do that. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us at the Intentional Man Podcast at mententional.org, and we try to respond to our emails as quickly as possible. So shoot us one over. We'd love to hear from you. Until then, until next time, you guys have a blessed week. Take care. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Intentional Man Podcast. If you haven't already, please follow us, give us a 5-star rating, and share the podcast with a man you think may enjoy it. If you'd like to contact us, you can email us at theintentionalmanpodcast@mintentional.org. For more information about our show topics, visit us online at www.mintentional.org. We hope you have a great week, and remember, guys, choose to be intentional.